Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game.
I'm Travis Holmes with BigCatCountry.com.
And you're listening to this thing on the Believe Podcast Network. Travis, welcome in to we're in that time, lying season, tribute to Jimmy Stone season. We already got people coming in the comments. Robertson there in Stones We Trust. And of course, Preston backing him with his 100.
Of course.
Right there. And I left something in the comments here for the Duval Dive to remind all you divers out there. Jimmy Stones, the guy's so awesome, Browns fans came up with our nickname for him. Just throwing it out there and giving you perspective. That's actually Casey of the Barking Browns that bestow me with that inspiration that have since been passed down here to all of us here at the Duval Dive. Shouts to Casey, by the way. I don't know when we'll be talking to anything Browns with him soon, but him and that group, the Barking Browns, are pretty good set of guys, and I'll just leave it at that. And of course, shouts to Social. I'll keep making his presence in the comments as per usual, and I'm sure there'll be takes and all of that. But let's lead with this. Something that is telling in its own right. No tags placed here on, in particular, Travis Etienne. And, well, we were pretty certain it wasn't going to happen with Devin Lloyd, but just to confirm, right? Adam Schefter reports players not tagged today who will be allowed to become free agents next week. Of course, Kenneth Walker, Alec Pierce of the Colts, Adafe Away, defensive end for the Chargers. That's actually going to hurt them. And, of course, running back Travis Etienne is listed with Tyler Linderbaum of the Ravens at center, and then Trey Hendrickson, somebody who will not be a Jacksonville Jaguar, so stop asking. Divers, it's not going to happen. I said what I said, Travis.
Nah, you said what you needed to say because they don't got the money, they don't got the snaps, like just for a few reasons, obviously.
I mean, you do intend on extending Trayvon Walker. That's all I'm saying. But
you do want to have a team. Like, just start there. Like, come on, man.
So, in the name of having a team, another element of your team offensively, especially in a Liam Cohen offense, would be the tight end position. And Travis, I believe you said it last week with friend of the show, Jamal St. Cyr, when we were doing our pre-draft combine preparation. Quentin Morris secured. Oh, and look, there's this guy, Travis D. Holmes, wrote about it on BigCatCountry.com there. So they bolstered the tight end position, retaining Quentin Morris. For those that happen to miss your previous comments or are hiding under a rock, this basically secures that blocking presence for somebody that isn't named Brenton Strange on the roster.
Right. I mean, we talked about it last week with Jamal, and that was the big part. Like, you have the only person in that tight end room who is truly stabilized in their role is Brenton Strange, and then you have Johnny Munt, who was essentially your tight end 3 for the second half of the season last year. And I actually, in the Big Cat Country article, took a closer look at the snap rate in all the games after the bye week, because I actually was shocked when I came up with, oh, wow, it was that stark of a difference. Like, I didn't know Quentin Morris actually played the number of snaps that he was playing. I'm not going to give away article content because I want you to click the link on BigCatCountry.com and read it. But yeah, when you see the differences, you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, that actually does make total sense. And it made sense to me and both me, you and Jamal just last week when we discussed it. But it made even more sense when I looked a little bit closer, because I'm like, oh, no, he's playing a lot of special team snaps and he's playing a lot of offensive snaps. And when the Jaguars are playing their best football, yeah, for $3 million, do that all day.
And I think a tribute to this offense is how Evan Ingram is so in the rear view. I haven't heard anybody here in the Duval about saying, and no, I'm not making fun of Ben Troop for saying he should have been there. This isn't that. What I mean is, like, it's not even coming up amongst you Duval devout out there that, golly, if we had Evan Ingram, we'd been better. I've heard no whisper of that, because if it was believed to be true, y'all fans out there would have said it. I think so. Yeah.
That's true. I'm sure everybody's waiting for that one player that Jacksonville lets go or Jacksonville doesn't resign or whatever else to have just a modicum of an average game. Like, when you still hear people talking about Tyson Campbell having a quote unquote good year at Cleveland. And I'm like, dude, did y'all watch the games? Because I did. It wasn't a good season. It's just the advanced analytics kind of say it could have been good. if you didn't watch or if you squint a little bit, like, nah, man, it wasn't. No.
I mean, it's not like his numbers were stellar anyway. Even matching the money. Like I didn't. I have to apologize. I know I don't run in the same circles to you, but I'm happy to report I have not seen that silliness. And if that is a thing, I'm happy to let you know you're some kind of crazy. Here, I could take my glasses out the case. I don't need to look at those numbers any closer than that to know there was some work needed to be done to those numbers to make them that good. I don't know. Maybe I'm the problem. I'm willing to admit it. And well, and interesting thought here. Only thing that came out of this is the team stayed together besides Etienne. Well, he's not gone yet, technically.
Together outside of ETN. I mean, does Devin Lloyd not count? The guy who probably single-handedly won the Jag. I say single-handedly, but you know what I mean. Like had a significant impact in multiple games the Jaguars won. Come on, man, we can't do that. Yeah, I can't BS y'all like that. Come on, that's Devin Lloyd's a huge loss for that Jacksonville Jaguars defense, and that doesn't mean that they can't replace them, but that does mean that it was a huge loss in and of itself in a vacuum. Let's see how they counter that.
And J Baby jumps in. He meant Lloyd too. He acknowledges. There you go. Sometimes the keyboard. And listen, I'm not saying this to make fun of you, J Baby. I do that same thing all the time. Here comes PJ Brown. Who we signing next week? You to represent us when it comes time to talk to the sports book because the way you hit last year with your bets. That's what it is, PJ. No, but hey, listen, the opportunity to hit the bell here presents itself. We'll have that conversation on an extra special third stream of the week here when we're doing that Saturday morning, I believe.
Saturday morning, like 10 o'clock in the morning, just because we love y'all that much.
I mean, that, and we also really want to play with the new tool we're thinking about using here for the event. So there's that as well. I also may or may not have been kept a little bit busy prepping my work with the other outlet there too, starting up with Locked On UCF. I said what I said. College basketball, people care. Anyways, and then Social Alky in the comments to wrap up this kind of segment here. PJ Brown, I got you. He's ready to represent us. I like it. Social Alky jumps in at this point, commenting on Hendrickson. The Jags need to extend. At this point, don't the Jags need to extend Trayvon to open up the money? Yeah, I think that's basically.
I think that's a reasonable take. Like if whatever extensions and restructures you expect to see that you know are happening behind the scenes that just have not been announced yet, or pretty much are wrapped up and just haven't been announced yet, you have to assume that one of those will include Travon Walker getting extended. And then we'll see what other moves that could be made, whether that's, the guys you haven't really heard much about. Because again, no restructures have been announced, though there are multiple reports out there kind of confirming that the negotiations are going on, no matter who you talk to. But again, the most interesting part for me is the guys you just haven't heard much about, like your Eric Armsteads, your Foye Oluokans, your Devon Hamiltons. That's the one that I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just curious about what that looks like or what that's going to result in when you got a guy that's 30 years old, 31 years old, and you're on the last year of your contract or something like that. Big cap hits. I could see something where they may be being shopped or something along those lines. You just never know how that's going to work out if they're just going to be on the roster and if they actually do come to an agreement. So we'll see where that lands.
I do want to quickly answer Storm the Desert's question because I think it's a really quick answer, and you could call it a cop-out if you want, Storm. I know you'll have plenty of questions surrounding our Saturday show here too as well, because I mean, you're that dude when it comes to the topic of roster and stuff like that. You've had some great takes in the past here in the comments. We thank you and all the Duval divers for jumping in as you do. Are the Jags going to do the same thing as last year and set the floor through free agency and use the draft to raise the ceiling? The answer is an inevitable yes. And not only will they do that, Storm, they will do it to perpetuate the culture in camp of competition. Travis, I don't think there's another answer to that.
No, you're right. I mean, that's kind of how you have to do it. I mean, that's the point. Like, you don't want to create holes unless it's just something where you don't have much of a choice, like in this conversation, like a Travis Etienne situation. I say you don't have a choice, quote unquote, but in reality, unless that's an elite guy, that's not much of a decision. The decision doesn't seem like to be so crazy or like wild out there. And that's kind of where I feel about the Travis Etienne situation. That's what I feel about the Devin Lloyd situation for an off-ball linebacker making the amount that they're talking, that the numbers that these guys are throwing around. Yeah, it just makes sense. So from that perspective, yeah, you're going to set the floor. And in saying that, maybe you still do see a guy come back like a Montero Brown, because that would be a floor stabilizing type of move. That's one of the only guys that I still don't 100% know if he's truly going to make it to free agency, like whether or not you see a last minute deal, something along those lines. Like he's the one guy other than maybe, Dennis Gardeck or something along those lines, because that's not going to break the bank. But yeah. We didn't talk about Mason Smith too, because we had the grab bag question. But
Well, I mean, we did get the grab bag question. We did talk about him some, but I think you and I have basically both inevitably see him leaving the roster. Like I don't.
yeah.
Do you count him? I don't count him. I
don't count him, but I mean, whether or not that ends up being a cut situation or whether or not that's end up being a move situation, someone offers not say a throwaway pick, but a late pick just to see what he has in the tank.
Like Fred Johnson kind of scenario.
Someone who had him ranked high coming out that didn't get a chance to get their hands on him and think maybe they can do something better with him in a different scheme or something like that. So
perhaps
we'll see. But you know what we are, man. With the new culture come new expectations.
I was about to say, in the name of stabilization, nothing exposes this like your work. See, this is why I wanted to talk, because I wanted to pimp your work for you. Like your work on BigCatCountry.com, talking about the NFLPA report cards. That's right. The grades were dropped. It's a bit of a, I don't want to say old story, but it's been a couple weeks, but we haven't really had a chance to weigh in. Sure, the Jags did inordinately better, and I'll bring up the grades here so you could kind of ride along with it. But I think your purpose here, Travis, is to point out this shows stability and player buy-in more than anything else.
They went from 18th in the league in these ratings to 5th in the league. Like, obviously, things got better. Now, that doesn't mean that wins took place on the field, but things got better. And, that's a big thing, because you went from a situation that wasn't necessarily the greatest to all of a sudden A's and B's and basically honor roll outside of one major area, and that's the position coach situation. And now, again, that's talking about the working environment from the player's perspective. I want to be very clear and say that. That's not saying that the results on the field are indicative of those grades. That's just saying, hey, man, the guys in the locker room, the players on the field are the ones saying, we think that the way that these dudes are handling business, the way that these dudes are communicating, the way that these dudes are taking care of my time and making sure that they respect the way that I like to do things, I think this is a dope place to be. I think free agents should come here. I think this is a good situation for me to be in and for my mentals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, this is a new way of setting a new standard and a new way of doing things, which can mean you may move on from guys. I'm putting these things together. It can mean you move on from guys who used to fit the old mold, but they don't fit the new mold anymore, fulfilling the blank reason. Because now you also, as an organization, you kind of have that, you've built up that ammunition or that cachet, I guess we can say, to kind of make those moves, because the fan base is going to give you that space.
I think you touched on it too. To me, it says the most to would-be guys that might be brought into the building. Like this is the thing you send in the mail to John Franklin Myers, for example, to assure him, hey, we have more here to enjoy than just no state tax. Okay.
Yeah. There you go. It's an additional sales pitch. No different than the Rams. No different than recently we can even go with the Seahawks now, but they flipped over that thing so quickly. How everyone feels about their head coach, their defensive coordinator, their GM, etc. So I'm just using that as an example of the Jaguars are now one of those teams. It's not the Jaguars, at least you're not the Jaguars. It's not that. It's oh no, the Jaguars. It's said with a little bit of reverence. It's said with a little bit of respect. So that's okay. Respect kind of did come in that way, at least from the player's perspective.
No, yeah, that all makes sense. We went from being mired in Urban's coaching, from dealing with a coach. Well, let's say now you're at B's and A's when previously you had a coach that was worried about T's and A's. Anyways, too soon. Anyways, so
all right.
With that in mind, I'll put it this way, man. The thing that I thought was most interesting, and to be honest, when you had suggested this as a topic to touch on these grades, I most wanted overall, and I'm not sure where you have it placed here in the graphics, so you're gonna have to help me a little behind the curtain here. But the question I had, oh, here it is. The question I was most curious about. You have it. Elkie College.
You dirty dog cow. Yes.
I'm just the comic
Yes,
relief.
yes,
It's okay.
Alki.
Yeah, but that in mind, for me, the question I had was the position coach being at C. You referenced it loosely, and here is the question, which you have very nicely added here too. How much of the A- for Cohen and Gladstone could be players who were basically benched? In your article, you talk about the quarterback coach being released on BigCatCountry.com. Are there any position groups that you feel the C might be coming from? In other words, why didn't Liam and company get A pluses, and why would the position coaches get C's? Who do you think brought the grade down? That's a fascinating question when you put it from that perspective.
Because I was trying my best to be real about this. Because I mean, it's so easy being in the media to just kind of BS this, and I'm not going to lie to y'all. Like, it's so easy to BS it and just give folks the candidate that they want. Just talk about great stuff, and just don't mention the negative. And you don't have to. There's no one forcing me to. But I'm not that guy. I'm sorry.
There's a reason why you get phone calls from agents. I get it. It's a thing. Yeah.
I don't want to necessarily, but it's cool. No, but whether you agree with it or not, like, I can see arguments from like certain position groups or certain players. That's not necessarily just putting it all on the feet of Ron Miles. Because that's what everybody's kind of doing. When everyone I've heard on the radio, everyone I've heard on podcasts that talks about this position coach thing just says, well, obviously they got rid of the secondary coach, so it must be that. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, you do have 7 to 9 guys in the secondary, so that could be it if all of them said this one coach was just bad or whatever else. But realistically, that's not how math normally works. Like, most of those guys would probably just be like, he's fine, or he's a C or a B or whatever. So realistically, you can say maybe some of these other coaches got B's or, high C's or something like that, and it just brought the whole thing down because you had one coach that might have legitimately been a D or a C or something like that. So I'm looking at, like, maybe just from looking at the production on the field, for instance, you could make the argument that maybe the defensive line coach wasn't what the players would have deemed, the best coaching or something like that. I'm using that as an example because I'm looking at the production on the field and how much you weren't getting, if that makes sense. Or you could even argue the wide receiver coach from that perspective, because again, they had a lot of confusion, a lot of issues as far as that was concerned the first half of the year. And this thing started, the surveys for the NFLPA coming out of the bye week. Where were the Jaguars coming out of the bye week? Still figuring everything out, still trying to figure out how much these guys are going to counter and listen to what's coming out of the locker room. And a lot of this, what the NFLPA is talking about, is communication, is conversation, is how willing these coaches are to listen, is how I feel about how they handle business. That's the core of all of this. So I can see an argument for the, like, D-line coach, wide receiver coach, and also, yes, maybe the secondary coach, if you want to look at just the results of what happened on the field, and maybe even offensive line.
Well, and here's the thing. Injury had such a factor with the DBs. I don't know how much the players would blame the coach for that, but then again, it could be for other reasons too. You mentioned wide receiver. I had my finger on the button to share the first comment I see, and we're getting some chatter regarding the wide receiver coach here. Jay Baby mentions, well, when you have a running back coach coaching wide receiver, but then, Social Alki coming in off the top rope, Edgar Bennett has been coaching the wide receivers for years. So why does it matter now? But in retort, Preston mentions, move Bennett. I mean,
I always think it's funny when folks blame the coach whenever the players like struggle, but then when players do well, half the time they don't say nothing about the coach. So it's always weird. Like Social Alki said it right now. Bennett couldn't catch for them. Bennett can't make guys run through the zone when they when they know they should be sitting it down. Like, some of that is conversation and communication from the coach, sure, but some of that is also the player just having to, like, take the hit, or just know when to sit it down. Like, and when they got different players like a Jacoby Myers, when they got different players, in and out of the lineup, I would say, after the bye week, Travis Hunter getting hurt and everything else, like, they didn't have those struggles. So how much of that is on coaching? How much of that is just getting a guy who just happens to know it, and you don't have to coach him up, and he can kind of coach from a player perspective. I don't know, and that's the hard part. You'll never really know that, and I hate trying to put anything on one individual coach or saying that they're not doing their job, because I ain't there every day. Like, I won't know that, but I can say, if you want to say what are the position groups that you could at least see that might be a potential issue. Well, we saw that on the film. The film says this might have been an issue, that might have been an issue, and maybe again offensive line with their instability throughout the season and different injuries and things of that nature. Maybe.
Let me go ahead and offer this, though, because we some shade was thrown in the direction of the wide receiver position. I might offer this counter, and it starts with, like Social Alki said, Coach Bennett couldn't catch on behalf of the receivers. But I would also remind the world at large that plug and play was absolutely a thing for this receiver core, and you can't do that adequately with less than good coaching. That's not an option. This is not a thing. You can't be in a situation where Brian Thomas Jr. eventually down the line recovers from the yips, right? Where's the coaching role in that, as an aside? A. B, how do you crowbar in a brand new acquisition that comes in mid-season like Jacoby Myers without good coaching? I think that's a fair point over and above that. And then my personal favorite, bleep, Puck out there somewhere. Okay, you don't have a 1,000-yard receiver. This wasn't a star carrying McCorkle Jones like it was last year in BTJ's case. Fair. There was some amazing plug-and-play action going on here, in my opinion. And who knows, maybe that shall we say specialization in running back coaching helped him give Travis Etienne some pointers to make him the passing threat he was. What about that as a possibility?
No, you are spitting right now, because right as it currently stands, folks are only talking about the negative part of the wide receiver group and where to put that blame, and they try to put that blame right on the feet of Edgar Bennett, not realizing, so you're not going to put the credit on his feet when you talk about Parker Washington's ascension, that development. You have to, if you're going to give him 100% of the blame, give the man 100% of the credit. Let's keep that thing 100. So, I actually think that's fair right there.
Yeah, and I think PT brings in the point first half before Jacoby. It was focus issues, pre-snap motion, route depth misses. Well, hey, we've remarked here many times on this show here that the complicated nature of Liam Cohen's offense, I think, has as much to do with that. And they managed to find their way after losing to the Super Bowl champion and the NFC runner-up. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's funny how that worked out. So these guys have improved in all the different ways, from the Trent Baalke, the Doug Peterson leadership group, quote unquote, we'll call it, to the Tony Baselli, Liam Cohen, James Gladstone situation. Like, the biggest area that they improved was the treatment of families, and I know most fans don't generally care about that. Where they went from an F to B+ with 3-letter grades, and the players originally were in 2024 were stating that they wanted more sideline passes for the family to see them before the games. They wanted the family room during home games so they could escape the heat. Because Jacksonville was only like one of 10 teams to not have one. So obviously they solved that issue. Congratulations, guys. The head coach, Liam Cohen, going from Doug Peterson to Liam Cohen, went from a C to an A-. And I mean, again, those are the biggest ones. You got the food and the dining area situation going up from a C+ to a B+. The training staff going from a B- to an A-.
with health violations and only have a C+. Like, why is that not lower? What am I missing? I don't know. Anyway, sorry, Trav. I didn't interrupt you.
No, you good. You got the strength coach situation going from a B to an A, and obviously the strength coach one was a big one because Eric, is it Ciani? Dang it, I always forget his last name. It's like a C word. The former Buffalo Bills strength, director of strength and conditioning, who Jacksonville hired before last season. Like, he was an A in Buffalo for this NFLPA coaching survey, and now he's an A in Jacksonville. So that's consistency right there, man. And the Jaguars just happen to also be one of the healthiest teams in 2025. I think that's also pretty great, because that's obviously a great hire from Tony Baselli. Y'all already remember the article when he's basically told them, do not let him get back on a plane. Like, we're going to hire this dude. Everybody keeps telling me he's the best strength and conditioning coach in the NFL. He ends up being seemingly showing it.
Mm.
So Buffalo seemed to have fumbled that bag at least. But yeah, the big one for me, bro. The big one for me.
Please.
These 12 coaches were the coaches who were ranked above Liam Cohen. And I thought that was funny. I thought it was wild, honestly.
And
'Cause
let
you
me
got
read off
Sean
some of the
McVay.
coaches where you might be able to make a defense, right? So Sean
Oh, no.
McVay, cool.
Yeah.
Andy Reid, cool. Mike McDonald, I mean, he won the Super Bowl. Cool, fine. I'll let you do the rest.
Even though Mike Tomlin is no longer coaching for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think there's very many people who would argue that that dude's not a hell of a coach.
Correct.
So like I can't even argue. I can't even push back against that. Mike Tomlin's dope. He didn't win, but he's a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mike McDonald, good. And then, Ben Johnson, all right, cool. I mean, especially what he did especially what he did, goodness gracious, in Chicago. He's kind of hard to argue against it. Mike Vrabel, like I'm naming all the top teams in the NFL for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get down to the Aaron Glenn conversation and the Nick Sirianni conversation, New York Jets and Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm like, I'm scratching a little bit here. Like, okay, that was interesting. Like I like Aaron Glenn coming in. Like, remember, like this past offseason. Now I don't want to pretend I like Aaron Glenn coming in, but also we see what's happening with that Jets team, right? We see that they didn't really have a real good plan as far as their position coaches were concerned. Like, there's a lot going on there that I was very confused about. Like, what were they all thinking? Because they seem to be flipping it up again now. So I just don't know how to feel about that. I guess they love how he was handling business, while also not loving the outcome of that business.
I would reiterate, these are player grades. So like in Preston asks in the comments, Dan Quinn, Campbell, and Glenn ? Okay, Man Campbell getting the players' approval is not a stretch for me. Okay,
yeah, that actually checks out.
Yeah, him being a former player, him being just inarguably an absolute badass where I wanted to run through a wall just from hearing him talk. I still want a grit cap. I don't care if it's Lions colors or not. I just haven't gotten around to buying one. Okay.
Yeah.
But to your point, you mentioned Aaron Glenn. Perhaps your DB bias pulled you in a certain direction there. That's possible. I'm saying that jokingly, brother. And yeah, Dan Quinn's a question mark for me too. But I think maybe and again, maybe the players like him, and he's getting
players
a pass
in Washington. Players in Washington love their GM, and they love him.
Whatever they're doing, not Dan Snyder.
Yeah, maybe that's it. They went from that, like, yeah, maybe that's the kicker. You went from terrible to just average to above average, and you can see that difference. Maybe that's what helped Jacksonville out, if that's the case. You went from Trent Baalke and a checked out Doug Peterson to guys who actually care.
But then he's only got an A-. So what's up?
Well, who only got an A-?
Liam.
Oh wait, Liam. Well, I mean, Liam only got an A-, but then so did Jimmy Stones. That's the other part. I mean, Jimmy Stones got an A- too, and I thought that was interesting because if you look at the GMs who were above him, it was only 7 of them. No GMs in the NFL received an A+. But look at the top 4, bro. The top 3, bro. Les Snead, John Snyder, Seattle Seahawks, George Patton, Denver Broncos. Like, you're talking 3 of the last 4 teams left playing in the NFL. And folks just love those GMs. Like the guys on those teams love those GMs. The Carolina Panthers GM, again, Washington Commanders, Adam Peters, and Indianapolis coach Chris Ballard was the interesting one for me. And then
the guy that hired Uncle Phil, you mean?
The guy that hired Uncle Phil, the guy that hired Jesus, that traded all those picks for Sauce Gardner,
right?
Who had Daniel Jones starting at quarterback, who also ends up tagging DG
transition tag,
DG
right?
DJ transition tag Daniel Jones, and probably losing Alec Pierce to free agency. Jesus, but he's a good drafter though. I'll give him that. Chris Ballard is a good drafter, and I guess the players in that locker room love him because they love that the checks keep cashing. Maybe that's it. Like, maybe it's as simple as that. And then the Minnesota Vikings GM, who got fired, but they still seem to respect how he did business. So that's just something that points out to me is that folks might love the way you do business, but that don't still mean that you're making the best picks, or that doesn't mean that you're still able to win on the field.
And I'm seeing a consistency here with something I'm seeing both in the comments and not only with the Vikings GM grade there, but something else that's brought to, and I was going to bring this to attention, but Storm the Desert and Social Alki do it just as well, probably better. Storm says Cohen was perfectly fine benching guys if the situation occurred and it helped the team. Maybe a few players weren't happy about being benched. One has to consider that, and I would see that and raise you Social Alki's add in. Liam held them accountable. They may not like it, but they respect it, and now brought in results in the form of a 9-game record improvement.
So that's interesting. So the argument would then be that because they're benching guys,
they may have a little bit of
head coach, that the head coach rating would be lower.
Yeah,
and I'm like, well, the person that's benching the guys probably is not the head coach though. Like maybe on offense, if you're talking someone like a De'Ami Brown, or you're talking someone like a Hunter Long, or something along those lines. And I'm not saying that those guys gave negative reviews or anything like that. I'm just
using those examples of guys who were benched and such.
Yeah, who were quote unquote benched throughout the season. But you're talking 3 to 5 guys realistically who would have been surveyed and benched, not just like benched and then traded like a Tyson Campbell. Like there weren't a lot of guys who straight up got benched throughout the season and still remain on the roster. You are talking a very small amount of guys out of 50, 54, 53 guys.
Well, it's obviously why Liam got rid of him, so they wouldn't bring his grade down.
Obviously, that's a great way of fudging the numbers. That's interesting. But I mean, yeah, but when I was saying earlier, like, dude, if you like with the GM situation, like the fact of the matter is this is a different culture. So because it's a different culture, you're going to be doing things in a different way. So you're going to be having conversations about guys who's on this roster who may not necessarily be here in future years or may not be here this year, that their name. Like you legitimately know an Eric Armstead. I'm just, again, that's an example. You legitimately know Foye. You legitimately know Travis Etienne. You know Devin Lloyd. You know these guys, and they might land somewhere and be freaking good. Mm-hmm. But that don't matter because these guys are trying to build it in a different way. They built the culture finally in a different way, and maybe that means that the new culture and the new scheme and the new team and all this stuff don't fit the old players, if that makes sense. Because maybe they just can't afford them. Like, again, that's a Devin Lloyd situation. It's more of just a money conversation, really.
Yeah, and I'll add this element too. PT Phone Home mentions maybe if it was for a 6-11 team, benching players would be an issue. But if you're winning, he shrugs. I'll say this. What we got to remember is it's an A- instead of an A+. So if you're just a little bit unhappy, like if you go anything like, if you go B instead of A, that's the thing that keeps it from getting all the way to the top of the scale, right? This is me,
right?
Putting on my statistics hat. It doesn't take a lot to knock you out of the top tier, air quotes. And I think that's just an element of it there. Of course, Robert Lamison maybe
Tank was not on the roster in November, like 2nd or whatever it was when they started doing the surveys.
Okay?
But it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And neither was Tyson Campbell at that point. So
That's
yeah,
right.
he would have already been in Cleveland at that time. But no, so with the GM grades being what they were, like again, James Gladstone got an A-, which they didn't have grades in the 2024 season, so you don't know what Trent Baalke would have been, but you can probably assume it would have it would have probably been a C-, D+ range, something along those lines. And you saw when Les Snead was obviously in that A range, but everybody keeps kind of having that conversation now. And I told my boy I was going to talk about this. The AC, I was going to talk about this tonight. Like everybody keeps talking about the fact that James Gladstone is going to be exactly like Les Snead and everything else. Like we made our predictions of what it was going to be when he got hired because we knew that's where he was coming from. That's going to give you a good general blueprint of what this might look like because you haven't seen many other examples of people coming from that organization as far as the executive side. You've seen coaches, you haven't seen the front office.
And we've acknowledged there would be some rhymes, but
yeah, so we made our guesses, and now we can objectively say, at least after the first year, of what it would be something. It's looking like it's similar, but you remember Brad Holmes exists in Detroit. He's also from that same front office, and he handles things in his own way. He handles things a little bit differently. Like, they've had multiple, like, what were no first round picks. For instance, the Rams with their Trent McDuffie trade that took place today, and for those of you who missed it, there's a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs and the LA Rams, with the Rams trading a first round pick, a fifth round pick, a seventh round pick, and then there's another pick thrown in there. I just forget which one it was off the top of my head, but they basically traded every first round pick since 2017 but one, which was the Jared Verse.
Was the one that broke Travis's heart when the Jacksonville
Yes,
Jaguars did not draft Jared Verse. That's correct.
Yes, that was the one I was on all that offseason. But overall, again, Brad Holm does things his own way, where the Rams seem to always pretty religiously trade away their first pick of the draft, whereas Detroit consistently has 1 to 2 draft picks in the first round. So Jimmy Stone seems to follow closer to where Snead is, I guess, if you want to put it between those two, because Jacksonville has no first round pick with the Travis Hunter trade. And then you add to that the rumor that Jacksonville was interested in trading for Quentin Williams. That's the different one, because seeing that what Williams went for, you kind of have to assume that that 2027 first probably would have at least been part of that conversation, right? Mm-hmm. That's the F them picks motto. Like, it's just like, hey man, get the player. We'll figure the rest out, but get the player in a position of need. That, or maybe even if that player looks to be an elite kind of talent, you get them in the house and you figure the rest out. You have an opportunity to trade for Jettas in Minnesota. I don't care if it costs you 2 first round picks. F them picks. It's the player that matters most. So if you can get him in house, you'll figure the rest out. I understand that. But yeah, so if you believe that those rumored talks that happened truly occurred with Quentin Williams, then you probably have to assume that a first round pick would have been included in that. So you can then say maybe James Gladstone is closer to that less need F them picks motto. But based on the grades that from the players, Gladstone received an A- on how he handles business, his transparency, how well he treats the players, and in essence, how supportive is he versus being abusive in how he handles business.
That's a good, I like how you worded that. Yeah, and the other piece, for all the injustice we've shouted out, I am curious to see, in particular, your reaction to this particular topic. I knew it was coming up because we talked about it off air. When you mentioned it, I believe this is one of those where I said I'm not going to say anything because of show content, and that is this. This right here, these guys getting graded over Campanelli.
Above Anthony Campanelli, and there are only 3 of them, and we can't sort them by an individual percentage, because they didn't provide the entire report this year because of the whole lawsuit for the New York Jets owners is terrible. But we know for sure, based on the overall grade, that Los Angeles Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minor, and Philadelphia Eagles DC Vic Fangio, and Seattle Seahawks DC and Aiden Dirte. Is it Dirte? I don't know how to say it.
Aiden, I would have said dirty too, but I've been told I'm a dirty boy. That's all there. Anyway, I'm joking.
All 3 of those guys got A+, and those are the only ones who objectively were rated higher than Anthony Campanelli on a grade by grade basis.
So to your point, no, we're not questioning an A-. We're showing it was just a new head coach, a guy who won the Super Bowl, and a guy upon which every other defensive coordinator copies himself from. I'm just saying.
Well, so no, the thing about these grades is that when you say are you questioning an A-, that might not seem. It depends on the position that's being graded, because you can have an A- and still be 20th in the league, and depending on the position, depending on the area that's being surveyed. So that's why you can't just look at the grades. You got to almost look at the ranking or the tier where they fall, because we just showed you Liam Cohen had an A-, and he was like 13th in the NFL, that's the best. There's a group of coaches who all got A- that Liam Cohen could even be in that group. He could be toward the bottom. You don't know where he is, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So yes, you may question an A-, because an A- could legitimately be the difference of being 13th in the league, which is about average, or 20th in the league, which maybe I do have some things I got to work on. I think that's worth talking about.
Yeah, 100%. I think I'll put it this way. It's very fascinating to see these things come out, because the players are giving us quite the representation. I'm kind of shocked that the court case carried the way that it did in favor of the Jets and the league on this, but what do I know? I'm no legal expert.
I think billionaires are very good at winning court cases. Let's just say that. They're good at getting, like, because they didn't stop the report card from coming out. They didn't stop the information from being gathered and put together for the free agents. All they stopped it was from being put out to the media. That's it. It's still happening. The players still know you were a terrible GM and a terrible owner, a terrible coach, whatever the person is that's being surveyed. We just don't know the specifics of it because they can't report on it. And even the people that get to see it aren't able to fully report on it. They can only give you the grades, even though they might know that owner's terrible or whoever it is. So it is what it is, man.
And to that point, that situation could happen. Social Alki mentions is there's an element where it's a popularity contest a little bit. I don't think that's 100% across the board. It's a little bit less when you're talking about players within their own organization. But if you aren't popular with your own dudes, then you're kind of crap at your job anyway, typically speaking, right? I mean,
it's a job though. Like, folks keep forgetting that it is a job. Like, and I loved playing football, and I wish I could have played it in the NFL. I wasn't that blessed. I wasn't that talented. But I can objectively say, at the end of the day, when you're doing it at a professional level and it's all you're doing and you eat, breathing, and sleeping this, bro, this is a job. And I want to make sure that it's not being made harder by the people that I'm working with, the people that are coaching me, the GMs that's supposed to be putting this thing together, that's maybe making my job more difficult. You all got jobs.
I was going to say,
listen to the sound of my voice, you've had a bad manager. You've had bad coworkers.
You care about what your boss is doing. This is a fact of the case. Like,
yeah. And if someone out in these streets pull you to the side and say, "Hey man, I'm about to apply for your job. How do you feel about it? Give me a rating." Yeah. How do you feel about your direct manager and how they do business? Do they waste your time? Do they call 45 minutes or an hour-long meetings when it could have been an email? Are they efficient? Are they effective in how they communicate? That's all this survey is. It's just saying, "Hey man, how y'all get down? Is this worth my time, or should I just go and apply it up the street to Red Lobster? Like, I can do this too." Like, I think that's a fine conversation. They'll be like, "Hey, this is the tiebreaker. I think I'll be more comfortable in this other place because they actually respect me for my time, and also I might be successful on the field."
You know, on a night where I didn't get to have dinner before the show, you would bring up cheesy biscuits, wouldn't you? Dang.
Oh man, that's that fire. But it's not always about winning and losing, unfortunately, because that's the part that was also weird about these NFLPA grades, because the top 5 grades had a few teams that were not great, like the Miami Dolphins. 3 years in a row, they've been the number 1 team in the league and how they quote unquote handle business, while also being a sub 500 team 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had the Minnesota Vikings, who were top 5, Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl champions, the Seattle Seahawks. Top 5, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Shout out to Duval, top 5. So that's a pretty good list to be a part of, at least, especially Kevin O'Connell and those Minnesota Vikings up at 2. So
the reason why it's uniquely great for the Jacksonville Jaguars is because of the reputation and lack of popularity, right?
That's it.
It's something where that over and above, right? Over and above the fact you're not an appealing place like everybody, let's pretend, let's make an NBA analogy, cheesy biscuits sound right about right after this stream. You're not wrong. I might make a trip, Preston. Don't encourage me. I'm diabetic. But the main piece there is, in a world where it's cool to not watch Jaguar games, a coach can refer to it as a small market team and it's a meme. To have something like this out there that, again, could hint to free agents, draftees, future people connected to the team, maybe even other position coaches if you're looking for a replacement somewhere there, right? When you inevitably you need to hire a new DC and a new OC because Camp and Udinsky are probably going to be job candidates again. Just saying. So in that world, this is why little things like this report card matter. It's just something else that the Jaguars and Shad Khan and Jimmy Stones can put into their cap to get the next best talent, the next flow of good talent in. And to Alki's point, it's Miami. Everyone loves Miami. That's the problem. People partying too much, and then they ain't ready for the game, allegedly.
I mean, we Jaguars had that problem in past times too. What was it, Joey Porter? That came in and called, and it was a vacation and everything else. Yeah, so that's not, we are not too far from that. I definitely understand that. And when you look at those teams that's at the bottom, you got the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, you got
Speaking of
that's
Joey
a really
Porter,
rough.
yeah.
That's a rough ownership group.
Yep.
And with other things involved.
Mhm.
Interesting, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was thrown in there. I thought that was crazy at
How much
29th.
that might be due to Liam Cohen's departure? That's fascinating.
I mean, that might be a big part of it. Yeah, they may not like how the ownership group handled that piece of it also, maybe.
Mhm.
And the general manager part of that, maybe, because they did lose some guys there also. And you got the Cleveland Browns, which, yeah, that makes sense. That checks out. Arizona Cardinals, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's weird.
10-7 Pittsburgh Steelers, the only winning team in the bottom 5. So, like, generally speaking, if you're in the top 5, you might be a winning team, or at least around 500 with maybe a good process but bad results on the field. And if you're in the bottom 5, for the most part, you probably are a losing team with maybe some opportunities or some serious opportunities in a few areas, whether that's the head coach, whether that's the ownership, etc. So I actually thought that while winning is not a mandatory thing, or is not necessarily going to walk in lockstep with these NFLPA grades, I thought it was interesting that the people that quote unquote are doing things the right way from the perspective of the players seem to be generally winning on the field. Generally.
And Preston adds a little funk to my point, because, players look at this to go here, to go there. It might take more to get them in the building or buy a house,
Right.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at.
They're thinking about all those things. That's it. They're like, if you're someone who is being told tomorrow, hey man, we got this job opportunity for you, but it's going to be on the opposite coast from where you live. If you're living in Jacksonville right now, it's going to be in Portland, Oregon, but we're going to pay you this much, but this other job is going to pay you the same amount in Jacksonville. But this is a better place for you to work. Like, you're gonna take all these things into consideration about your mental stress, your happiness, everything else, and you're gonna come to the best conclusion for you and your family, just like these players do. So that's just another good thing for Duval.
Storm makes an interesting point about the Bucs with the lower grade there. Bucs basically told Cohen to go interview for the Jags, but don't come back. If that's how they handled him, God knows how they handle everyone else.
And this is all before they got rid of guys after the end of the season, when these surveys took place, the coaches. Like, I mean, I'm sure the players didn't love some of that either. That's social alky. I said Joey Porter, and you got the Hugh Douglas thing too. Yeah. Forgot about Hugh Douglas. He was the bigger story. Yeah. So, man, at the end of the day, the Jaguars obviously have a different culture going on. Like, they've set a new culture. They moved on from that he who must not be named, Trent Baalke regime. The Dave, which is all really just a rollover of the Dave Caldwell regime, if you want to go back to that.
Did you make Trent Baalke Voldemort? Is that what the hell just happened?
Yes.
Yes, I
absolutely. I absolutely did. I ain't blinking. That's fine. But yeah, man. So, like, at the end of the day, that they finally, objectively, after just 1 year, have moved on to that, and that still does not 100% tell me that James Gladstone is going to be an incredible general manager and he's going to be the best person ever and he'll be the GM for the next 45 years. I don't know that, but I do believe that he is who he is. He is his own person, and we're gonna see where the results lie. Because again, some of these guys, like the Minnesota Vikings GM, had the love of the players. Everything seemed to be great as far as that locker room is concerned, and he still was fired, because at the end of the day, it's about wins and losses on the field, and I still stand on that. But it seems that the Jaguars have a little bit of cohesion from the front office across the board, from the EVP to the coach to the general manager, and that's positive for Duval, because the culture at least does seem like it's locked in. Now, hopefully these wins keep coming and y'all stay happy, but I think it's a great situation for Duval right now. And I think it's very clear for anybody just watching even on a surface level. Wow, this is blatantly and obviously the case. I'm just happy to see players are in agreement.
Yeah. It might make for a very interesting episode this time next year if it all goes wrong and Stones gets an F. But until such time, no. But yeah, listen, I think this is what we're going through. I thought it was very interesting to hear your take on the position coach thing and all of the other stuff of why this stuff actually matters and how ridiculous it is that the Jets were allowed to have these grades suppressed. such as
billionaires always find a way to just ruin it for everybody else. We was having fun pointing fingers at them, but billionaires don't like having people point fingers at them and tell them they suck. So I guess that's what it is.
I didn't know they could even hear me up there in their ivory towers. Anyways, Travis D. Holmes, tell the world where you could be found.
Man, on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. That's it. But more importantly, follow my writing on bigcatcountry.com. Take a look at the Quentin Morris article. You can see what I was talking about as far as his snap rates and why I thought this was a good move for the Jaguars, but also an expected one for the Jaguars. So now they have a few options as far as the draft is concerned. A floor stabilizing move, like we talked about, maybe that Montaric Brown future situation, if it comes out, would be. But yeah, Travis D. Holmes on all the socials. I mean, if you listen to the sound of my voice on the YouTube side, please click that like button. If you're listening to the stream, all of you listening to the stream, I see how many numbers it is. All of you click that like button. I ain't asking for a lot. I'm asking you to click the like button. If you listen to us on the audio side, please rate and review us, because again, it helps us out tremendously. It costs you nothing but 3 seconds of your time, and we appreciate you for doing it. Keep commenting. If you have anything that you guys want to talk about, as always, let us know on the chat. Let us know on X. Let us know on TikTok. Duval Dive on all the places, because you guys drive this conversation, because we're always talking with you, not at you. So let us know what you want to talk about, and let us know where you can be found, sir.
Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings and coverage of the UCF Knights football and basketball now with Locked On UCF. And of course, coming soon, nightzone.com. And listen, Storm, understand something. I might not be 300 pounds, but I can still have as much beer as I need to before I go to bed tonight. Thank you very much. And of course, my work covering the Orlando Magic. And I think that'll round it out. All of you Duval divers in the comments have been fantastic once again. There were a few free agency things I had to leave on the table here, ladies and gentlemen, because of the simple fact that Saturday morning we'll be doing this. Jimmy Stones doesn't flinch, so Shalaki will be on Saturday taking your questions there for free agency.
Saturday will be live, just so you guys know. So feel free, 10 a.m. If you up and you got some mimosas or any other alcoholic libations, feel free to join the crew, and let's just have a conversation.
Facts of the case. So, for my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, for all you Duval divers and the Duval Devout, this is Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Until Saturday, everyone, class dismissed.